Okay, let's start with design principles, and let's start with the first one, which is unity and harmony. By the way, quick remark, I'm taking all of these principles from just a simple Wikipedia page, and to be honest, I don't want to bother you with this long text just by copy pasting this text, and because there's so many interpretations of design principles. You can find few books just dedicated to explain what design principles of design are about. That's why I will simplify everything and try just to visualize everything in a very simple form so you get the essential, because it took me ages to learn every one of those, and what I will be trying to deliver to you is just the essential part, just the core ideas behind these principles. So let's start with the first one, unity and harmony. And it says basically what unity and harmony is about. It's kind of self-explanatory. Your design should be unified and everything should be in harmony. And it's a very vague kind of statement, because it's obviously everything should be unified, but what I like about this principle, you have definite methods that you can use to make your picture look unified. For example, let's go and see the first one, the perspective. Well, obviously perspective is one of the core elements of design, because most of 90% of the stuff you're doing is in perspective. It's not flat image, it's the three-dimensional space that you need to describe. And if you don't know perspective, then you're in a big trouble. So that's why everything you do should be in perspective. And the question would be, do you really need to know perspective to be able to create really, really complicated perspective? I don't think so, because there are so many tools these days that you can use and that will simplify your life in terms of perspective, because once you get very complicated, imagine if doing like one vanishing point perspective is quite easy, anyone can do it, but imagine if you have 3, 4 or 5 vanishing points, then it just gets super complicated. So that's why we use 3D, right? Or we use some other elements that like some other programs that will help you to actually create and construct perspective that I will show you in further lectures. So perspective is one of those things that you need to keep in mind, and perspective will always help you to create better designs, and also will help you a lot to reinforce your designs as well, because by using perspective, for example, if you're building something, let's say, and you do something like this, you really don't know how big this thing is, but once you put like a human over here, and then you put another over here, and then you put another over here, another here, and you kind of understand that these guys, they are going into perspective, and then you just realize, oh my god, this is a big guy, right? So perspective helps you to tell the story. So that's the first kind of method that we would use in unity and harmony. Let's go to another one, similarity. Well, similarity, basically I just showed you the primitive example of similarity. It's an ability to see similar objects. Let's, for example, create like a lamppost, right? Everybody knows what lamppost looks like, and you can use this one as a story element. For example, in further lectures I will show you how to use mixer brush, and for example, by using mixer brush we can just copy this guy, and then we can start quickly building our perspective. Boom. And now, seeing those repeating elements, you can kind of see that this is going into distance, and if you need to tell a story, let's say there is something in the end of this tunnel, or the road, and then you guide your eye, so your eye enters from here and it helps you to tell the story. So that's why similarity is the second principle that we use to kind of design our frame. Let's go to the next one, continuation. Continuation is kind of similar thing, but it's a bit different, of course. Like, let's do our frame again. Framing. Basically, continuation is, for example, if you start designing your frame, you're using these continuous lines, and they don't need to be like, the easiest example would be just to place a river, right? You just to place a river, let's say like this, and then you enter this frame from here and you follow the river. Your eye will naturally follow the river, but you don't need to always use like roads or something like that. You can use elements. Like, let's say you've got a human over here, and then over here you've got some few rocks, and then over there you've got some few rocks, and then over there you've got a big rock. And basically what's happening, you're entering frame with this human, because we read from left to right, and then you go to these bushes, you look at them, and then you go to these guys, maybe you do something like this, and then you jump over here. So basically continuation is all about creating this zigzaggy motion inside your frame, you know. It's not, it's not only about zigzagging motion, the motion could be circular as well. Like, for example, if you're doing another frame, you know, you can also introduce like a circular motion with arranging your elements in such a way that they force you to, for example, it could be two characters doing something, you know, and other character, like two characters fighting with each other, and then you have a circular motion, but it's all continued motion. Like, if you analyze any of old masters, and when I will be analyzing like a movie frames, you will see so much of continuation going on. Like, everything is flowing into each other. Nothing is being like interrupted, or nothing just stops randomly. Everything kind of flows to each other. And like, for example, if you analyze old masters, they always do, for example, this continuous lines of flow, and then you travel inside your picture, entering from here, entering there, and going there. So I will be showing you examples on master studies, and you will clearly understand what continuation means. Let's jump to the next one, repetition. Well, actually, most of these, they are kind of connecting with each other, so I already kind of showed repetition, but also you can use repetition, like, remember in the very first lecture, like, let's sketch something, some kind of sci-fi element. Okay, and now we have this repeating pattern that you can use. For example, let's do like this. So you can use this element to describe the form, for example. That's actually could be like some floor panel or something like that, you know. So you're using repeating elements which are going like this. You're using these elements to reinforce the unity again. We're going back to unity because you're reinforcing the sense of perspective. And you're also reinforcing the sense of continuation as well, because you're seeing those lines, that pattern diminishing towards the vanishing point. So repetition is one of the most used and one of the most powerful tools to show the scale and the form and the sense of the space. Okay, how about next one, rhythm? Well, rhythm is a very, very important one. Like, I find the moment when I realized how powerful the rhythm is was kind of the moment when I started enjoying what I was doing. And overall, rhythm can be anywhere. Like, it could start from simple, like, lines. Let's put a set of lines, right? We put like, this is pretty cool. Like, you can see frames like this. But is this that interesting? Maybe not, because if you start offsetting your frame, your lines, you will get the sense of motion, you know? Like, for example, the tree is the best example. When you're drawing the trees, you know, you're keeping this rhythm, everything just flows to each other naturally, you know. You can see this motion, you can see the motion, how it goes. If you're doing a character, instead of doing like a T-pose character, you're doing like, you're bending the body. So for example, let's say you're bending the body and you just create this natural flows inside the body. And it will always help you to create more dynamic images if you start creating these nice rhythms inside your picture. Like, if it was inside a frame, you will still use it. You can do like this and go. So if this was your river, so you're creating a nice rhythm. And that allows you to improve your design and improve your story as well. So this was all about Unity and Harmony. But before I tell you more about principles, I would like to say something very, very important. Like, for example, when we will start doing more complicated stuff and like creating compositions and designs. I would love you to always remember, there's nothing like wrong composition. There's nothing like wrong design. But there's always bad composition or design, and there is always good composition and design. So this is where we are aiming to. We want to create good compositions and good designs. I particularly had a lot of difficult time with the students that would ask me questions. Like, they would send me 10 different frames, you know, like different ideas with different compositions as well. And they will ask me like, oh man, can you help me? Which one is better than other? Like, and I will always tell them, like, every one of the, like, obviously some of them of compositions, they don't work, but there are like at least 2 or 3 compositions that are pretty cool, that all of them are pretty good. And in order to choose the one you want to finish or finalize, you need to understand what is the story, what is the main thing that you want to tell with your composition or design. And once you address this question, then it will be so easy for you to understand, okay, this doesn't work because it doesn't work for story. This doesn't work because story is not as strong. And this one actually is a good one. So, and to select this one, all you need to ask yourself, what is your story? And does everything inside your frame help to reinforce this story? And that's why I kind of really encourage everyone, instead of doing like millions and millions of very cool compositions, Just concentrate on 2 or 3 that you think serve your story, and then you will definitely eliminate everything else, and you will spend less time on unnecessary stuff, and you will spend more time on what's essential and what's important. So ask yourself a question: what's my story? And find a corresponding design or frame that will kind of answer your question. Anyway, it was just a quick side note, and let's just move on. So the next one would be balance, and I would love to actually skip the balance because balance is a very subjective thing. Like, of course, we all know the scale. For example, if you put a big object over here, then you need to put something smaller but further away to kind of balance these two guys. But the good news for us, this rule is so, like, every one of those rules, they will help us, but what we need to do, we will study them and then we will forget them to break the boundaries, basically. That's why in my career, like, I do know the balance very well. I do keep in mind balance as well, but I don't think it's something that should really restrict you, and that this is something we really need to emphasize. So I will just skip the balance and go straight to hierarchy. Actually, hierarchy is a very important one because it's another occasional case when people ask me what do I think about their composition or design, and then I ask them, what's your story? And they tell me, okay, my story is this one, okay. And then I ask them a second question. Like, if the first one was, what is your story? My second question would be, who is the main? Or let's say, what is the focal point? Or who is the main guy, right? Let's put it this way. Because you always need to build a hierarchy inside your compositions. Let's say there is a main guy in your composition, and the story is all about him. Then he needs to be the biggest guy with the highest contrast, and he needs to be in the center of everything. And how you can achieve this, I will show you a lot of different examples, just by tweaking color, just by putting a little bit of more emphasis on the guy. You will build this hierarchy inside your frame. Like, for example, you can do it size-wise. Like, if you do one big guy and then you make a smaller guy, then instantly you create a hierarchy. So this is your main guy, number 1, and this is your second guy. Because he's smaller, this guy has more contrast, and that's what you need to ask yourself. That's why you need to ask yourself, who is the main guy in your story? It could be just a building, it could be a tree, but you always need to build a hierarchy, because you need to guide your viewer inside your frame. For example, you can make, let's say you make a mountain, and that becomes you, and then you build a human, and then you have this interaction between those two. And inside your frame, that's why I keep saying all of those rules, they're kind of interconnecting with each other, because we will be using all of them at once. Like, for example, if you will have something, and we build something, and then you will build the hierarchy around it. You will say, this is my first guy, second, third, fourth, and by doing this, you're creating a continuity, you're creating a rhythm, you're creating the visual flow inside your frame. Like this. Okay, let's go to the next one. Dominance, emphasis is the same one, similarity and contrast. Actually, this is the one I want to explore a little bit more, because this is the one that kind of is less vague than the others. The contrast is something everybody could understand, and introducing contrast to your design will have a dramatic impact of how you tell your story. So there are tons of different contrast types, and let's just make a really quick examples on every one of those. Like, for example, let's start very simple. Let's say we're looking, shall we say, you're making lines like this. And then once you put one of them into another pointing into another direction, this immediately becomes the point of contrast. This is immediately becomes a number one main guy in this composition. And the way you can do it, there are like millions ways to do it, but it's all about contrast. Once you understand the main principle, which is contrast, you can just create crazy stuff. Like, let's do the same thing. You see, because I introduced a little bit of variety, it just looks different right now, but let's just keep it like this, and then let's put a couple of lines like this. You see a contrast between, like, most of them, they were evenly spaced, not exactly evenly spaced, but approximately. But once you put some very close ones, it just draws your eye into it. It's absolutely something you will see as a first read. And remember, when I started this lesson, I told you that let's start from a very simple design, because composition starts as a graphic read. When you look at the composition, the first impression comes not from the content. Like, what is this? I don't know. It could be a valley. It could be like an aerial photo of the fields, or it could be the pattern of your floor. I don't know. But what's important, that whenever I see it, the first read is what I get from the composition. So we will always be looking for a graphic look. Simple graphic look. That's why we will avoid a lot of values. We will avoid color. First, we will concentrate on a very simple graphic look. Let's see some other contrast types. Like I already showed, failed empty. That's the most basic one. When you do something like this, your eyes go to this one. This becomes your focal point and the main guy. Far, near, it's the same thing. Like here, you're using the contrast to show the dimension. Form, simple versus complex, all of this, they will serve you as your design principle to tell your stories. Like, for example, let's say once you put something over here, it draws your eye. Or you can do something like this. And put something solid over here. Now it draws your eye as well. So you look straight here because it has a contrast. So how can this work? Like, for example, this frame, if we're doing a movie, for example, you're taking this shot when you have, let's say, beautiful fences. And then behind the fences you've got actually person walking. And then you see your draw immediately, your eye goes immediately to this one. Or it could be a window. So it doesn't necessarily always goes to a very, like, you know, usually people tend to do like a very simple, very strong contrast. Like you do something like this. You make a spear and you get 10 likes on Facebook. That's a very strong composition. There's no doubt in it. But if you know those different contrast types, you can create a very, very, very complicated and interesting different designs, you know, for example. And then over here, you put something solid. And then this becomes your focal point. So there are a lot of those. What I would like to do, I made a simple setup for you guys, which is a little bit more visually representative than this, because these exercises, they're very simple. That's why I really wanted to show you, because one of the exercises for you this week will be doing like a simple compositions, just really abstract, nothing fancy. I really want you to improve your abstract side of your brain. But also we have another section where it will be much more which will be much more visually represented, and I will be showing all those contrasts to show you how it works. So that's it, all pretty much it about design principles, to be honest. And I know whenever you show something, especially when I was at school, when you read text like this, it just comes to one of your ears and goes out from another. Nothing actually stays before you actually start doing something. That's why I highly encourage you get some other resources, read a little bit more about it, because once you understand this stuff, it's so powerful, and it will, believe me, enable you to create a really, really, really powerful designs and stories. Okay, let's move on to the next lecture. See you guys.